Hi, Matt Sullivan here to talk about the presentation that I did last Tuesday for the Society for Technical Communication in Orange County. It has to do with using Photoshop for technical communication. You can see some of the icons of the products that I discussed. Now, this was a software demonstration. I'm just trying to do a quick overview of that presentation since the slides are a little bit light and it was mostly demonstration. First off, we wanted to talk about Photoshop, and in particular, we wanted to talk about JPEG and when to use JPEG and when not. The bottom line is JPEG is a delivery format, not a storage format. So if you need to make multiple edits to a file, it's a bad idea to open a JPEG, then edit it, and then to save that again as a JPEG. You will lose quality. So if you need to do edits, and you expect to do multiple edits on your files, best practice is open it up. Open up the best quality file that you've got, save it as Photoshop, and then export out as JPEG as a delivery format only. Don't ever open up a JPEG for the second time because you will have lost quality. Next, we talk about color modes. Want to understand that when you're going with web delivery, you're going to use an RGB format, and then when you're going to print delivery, you want to go with a CMYK. Resolution, you want to keep your web stuff and your online delivery stuff at 75 pixels per inch. It's easy to say DPI instead of PPI. It's actually pixels per inch in the file. And then for print, we're going to go with a rough estimate of 300 pixels per inch at the final published size of the graphic. So you need to do a little math there to figure out how many pixels you need in the file and then place and size that file accordingly. Also, it's a really good idea to get familiar with adjustment and other layer techniques inside of Photoshop, as well as how to save selections and work with channels in general. So layers, channels, and in particular adjustment layers through selections and channels and masks. Look up all those topics and you'll be on your road to being a Photoshop pro. Photoshop as it relates to Framemaker. Framemaker allows you to place a native PSD file, so that's a good idea in any application that lets you do that. That will give you direct access to the file that has all your working material. Also, we want to be able to, in Framemaker, recognize that you can either double-click or right-click on a placed image, in this case a PSD, to launch Photoshop automatically, to automatically go to either the file that's copied inside the file, inside the Framemaker document, or automatically open up the file that's referenced on disk. So that means you don't have to fumble to start Photoshop. You don't have to fumble and look up the location of your file. It's a one-to-one relationship. Framemaker is going to get you in that place in a hurry. I use Photoshop to work with screen captures a little bit. I use it to crop things. I also use it to, excuse me, I use it to scrub out things on screen captures or modify text that existed for version changes and things like that. Also, I use multiple versions of graphics, often when I'm doing both print and online publishing. For instance, I might have a screen capture with a button on it, which indicates that something is clickable in the online, but I don't want that button available in the print. So that allows me to work with the color mode, the resolution, and the physical appearance of the graphic to make it more appropriate for print or for online delivery. And then I use conditional text to eliminate the file that's not needed when I'm actually going ahead and publishing the file. Inside of Robohelp, there's some fun things that you can do with skin elements. You can open up the individual small graphics that make up your skin and customize those even beyond what you are allowed to do in the difference of skins or the different skins that are available in the gallery. Also, you can process some graphics. Real quickly, just want to talk about Captivate. In Captivate, it's a good idea to, when you're trying to track down a graphic, to right-click on that graphic to use the Find in Library function from the slide. Then from the library, do a right-click to edit that graphic. And you can do that really with any bitmap graphic editor. I choose Photoshop because, well, that's what I've used for 15, 20 years now. And but you could use any other bitmap editor. You can do some fun things with text captions. You can create a series of files that are related by resolution and by file name. Place it in the appropriate directory in Captivate, and you can actually extend the text captions that are available to you in Captivate. By the way, you can also delete the ones you don't plan on using. Likewise with buttons, you have what are called image buttons in Captivate, and those are sets of related graphics which, when published, appear to be like a JavaScript or an HTML rollover button. And that's a nifty way to be able to use simple graphics to create sophisticated effects. And again, putting it in the proper place in Captivate means you're going to have access to that in all your projects. InDesign's always been really closely related to Photoshop, and you've always been able to launch directly from an InDesign file. You've been able to edit the original graphic file, and that again will launch Photoshop without you having to worry about it, launch the graphic in question without you having to track it down on disk, and then update those changes directly into InDesign. On top of that, you have access both to clipping paths and to layer visibility inside of your InDesign document, and you have access to those, this is the interesting part, without actually changing the Photoshop file itself. So you can dig into the assets in that Photoshop file to make your life a little bit easier. Of course, if you change your Photoshop document, either changing the layer visibility in the Photoshop file, changing the transparency of one or more things in your Photoshop document, you will of course see those changes carried through into InDesign as well. Wrapping up, if you're not already aware, an Illustrator file and a PDF file are very closely related. You can kind of treat them as the same sort of format. That's a little bit of a broad brushstroke, but you're pretty safe doing making that assumption. And also within Acrobat, you have the ability from Acrobat to set a bitmap editor and to set an to set a vector editor. So if you do that in your Acrobat preferences, you can open up a PDF and then treat those graphics as editable by right-clicking and choosing to edit the bitmap or choosing to edit the vector as needed. Well, I hope that helps out and allows you to use either Photoshop or another bitmap editor a little bit more intuitively in your own workflow, regardless of the applications that you happen to be using. If you need any help with electronic publishing or in technical communication in general, here's some contact information for me, and I hope I can be of service.